People I find don't really see the value in it because they're like, oh, I got to take time out of doing a sale to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
But the whole goal with Liberty Networking is long-term relationships. If you build those relationships, the business will come.
What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, owner of Swamp Rabbit Moving, and I got my co-host Ray Mack with Mack of All Trades and also a real estate agent with the Damian Hall Group. Today we got a very special guest, Jimmy Sorrells with Liberty Networking. Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. So give us a little, let's just start off with what made you start Liberty Networking?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm a member of another organization called Businesses for Liberty, and I was in about 4 or 5 different networking organizations, and that's where I just got the idea. I said, why can't I just network with like-minded people that I want to do business with? And so I talked to a few close friends here in the area, and they said, yeah, I think that could work. And so I just put together a meeting. I had 6 people at the first meeting, so February of last year, so it's been 21 months. And we started growing, and people liked the format that was laid out and the way that we were running the meetings. And so by May, I formed a LLC and put my structure in place. And then in June, we started our second chapter. And then we had 6 chapters by the end of the year.
Nice.
And then 12 chapters by June of this year.
Wow. Awesome. That's pretty cool. So what did it, walk us through a little bit of that process, what it looked like. So from like concept, like you decided, hey, I want to start Liberty Networking, to actual launch, what was that timeline and what did it kind of look like in there launching a new business?
Yeah. So, I mean, within about a month of having the idea and talking to a few friends, that's when I had the first meeting in February. And so really it was just being consistent with the meetings. And that's when I filled up the room within about 3 months, with 22 to 24 people coming consistently. That's when I knew I had something. And like I said, just putting the structure in place. And of course, we've changed things, over the year and a half that we've been around for improvement and everything. But that's how we got started.
Learn as you go.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been 100% grassroots. Pull, by your bootstraps, as they say.
How many members did you have when you first started? The first group.
So
I was
the
in
first
group.
Yeah, Chris was an OG. So I didn't charge any dues, for 3 or 4 months, and then we had like $100 introductory rate in May to June, and we probably had around 20 official members around that time. But as it kept growing, we had 4 people from the first chapter that left to start the second chapter.
Awesome. So how many members do you have now?
Currently, we have 115.
Wow.
That's awesome. Just from last year to now?
Yep, 21 months, yes.
That's awesome.
And how many locations is that?
That is a total of 15 all over South Carolina, and we just launched one in Charlotte. Is our first North Carolina out of state.
Sweet.
And so I'm actually going to Charleston to launch our 3rd chapter this week.
Man.
And then we also have Anderson coming on board and possibly Hendersonville as well.
Cool.
That's awesome. So what does it look like starting a new chapter? Like how do you find these people, especially the one out of state in North Carolina? Like,
yeah,
where do these people even come from? How are you finding them to start a new chapter?
That's a good question. Most of it is pretty much all is word of mouth.
Okay.
Relationships and people in Liberty Networking that love it, and they like, hey, I know somebody that lives in this area, that area. And for instance, that one specifically in Charlotte, there's a company called Thrive, and there's about 4 or 5 of those members in Liberty Networking, and they talk about it on their company calls. And so everybody in the district knows about it, and then they get my contact, and we have a conversation. They have to go through an application process, and then they have to find a location once that's approved to meet at, and then I'll go and run the first meeting.
Yeah, so how does that look for you? You have to go run the first meeting, and then are you having to show up there every now and then?
Yeah,
So
great question.
On the ground,
yeah. So I do still attend a lot of them in the upstate, but not on a regular basis. Each chapter has its own chapter president. So for the ones like Charleston and Charlotte, Columbia, Greenwood, all these. I go and I will run the first meeting, and then they are basically, I have everything laid out in video form as well as print, and they watch me run the first meeting, and then they are kind of on their own as far as running the meeting, but I'm always there for support. And I'm building out a video instructional format for as these chapters grow further distances away from me that I'm not going to be able to attend on a regular basis or even the first time, so that they know how to run a meeting.
Nice.
And
how important do you think it is to have those SOPs in place?
Very important, because while this is not a franchise, this is run as a corporate structure. The integrity and the structure of the meetings is very important, because that's what makes Liberty Networking what it is you got the great people first, but second, you got the structure of how it's run. It's run different than other network organizations. And you do have your basics. I mean, you got certain things in a network organization that you got to have. I get that. But the way that the structure is set up, that's what people like about it. And if that is not intact, then it's going to cause more issues down the road. So having those SOPs is extremely important.
Did you learn like I did the hard way?
A lot, yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
with that fast of growth, I'm sure you.
You kind of got to, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So are you planning on remaining like corporate altogether? You plan on franchising this model out? What's the future look like for Liberty Networking?
Yeah, I do not have any plans to do any franchising at this point. Yeah. Things may change in a couple of years, depending on growth and all. But right now, I like to keep everything corporate.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's smart. Well, so I mean, what are some of the hardships you've run into? I mean, with fast growth, I've noticed one thing you've changed the pay scale. So you were charging about $100 when you started, then you got up to about $200.
Yeah, $150, $200, then it was $300, and then we're going to $400 in January.
Did you get any negative feedback from that, or?
I've gotten a few, but overall not bad. I mean, I've had people. I'm pretty sure Chris
happy. So you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah. This is a fact, and you want the right people in the seats, and that's one thing that I've learned too. And I was going to say, Chris, I believe, was one of them. I've had people like, why are your dues so low? I'll pay you double now. Yeah. And with I have a board of advisors and everything, and just consulting with them, and that's how we decided to raise the prices. Locally, there's some other network organizations that are $500 to $600 a year. And so 400 is still, I don't want to be other network organizations, but they are kind of a guide in a way. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
But some of the growing, what was the question you asked about growing?
Just the tough spots with growth, and then having to change the cost and stuff and make those adjustments, adding a new website and all those things.
Yeah. A lot of that comes through sponsorship. So, I am paying for things, obviously, but the sponsorships definitely help out. One of the biggest things is having the right people in the right seats, and that's not just every specific seat, but more importantly, from my point of view, is the leadership.
Yeah.
And the leadership can therefore make sure that their seats are correct
for sure
in their chapter. But having those presidents, I've had some that stepped down, and I've had to fill in things like that, and replacing some of the presidents for various reasons. But making sure that that person is a good leader and that they're inviting guests and doing the things they're supposed to do so that their chapter does. It's been one of the biggest challenges. And then I've also had quite a few challenges, more than I guess I would have expected as far as locations. The way my business model is set up, every location that we meet at is free. There's no additional cost. And I do that so I don't have to charge my members additional fees to cover those rental fees. So although I've had to move a lot of chapters, it still works well that way, because the business, if they understand that we're there and we're bringing their business, and Liberty Networking is known for tipping well and taking care if we're at a restaurant, that type of thing, leaving places clean and things like that. And so I make that a point to all the presidents to make sure that type of thing is taken care of.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, eventually, will that be on the president, like finding the location for the chapter?
Oh, well, it is currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not
no.
when all 15 chapters have to get moved around, you don't have to.
Yeah. So when a new president comes on, that's in the format, and in their application is that they have to find a place. Of course, I give them guidelines, but I move that off of them. Also onboarding new clients. That's the president, the vice president takes care of that. I'm not meeting with every new person like I used to.
Yeah.
So that's definitely
Progress.
a relief. Yes.
Well, I've seen the change in just, I'm a member, so
Absolutely.
I've seen the change from the beginning to now where, you've put the leadership committee in place. You've got, now it's not just one person like mine was John just doing it all by himself. And now he's got Patrick and Kirby and he's
Absolutely.
got the backup. So, and then people are, getting their specific jobs. I think that's something that is really what I've learned from just this podcast and everybody that we bring in here is we always talk about SOPs and putting that person in the right job and defining that job.
Sure.
Really is the strongest point to building a team and building a business.
Well, defining specifically what each role and what each person has to do, what they're accountable for. Yeah.
That way they're not overwhelmed, but they're also accountable for what they're doing, and then that way they can grow in their own as well.
So that's one thing I've had to learn with starting a business, having a board of advisors. Okay, they don't want to hear every little thing. There's some things that I need to have another advisor for specific things. They're there to help with ideas and help growth and all. They don't want to hear every little negative thing, that members are fighting or something like that. So that's just been a learning curve for me.
Sure.
For sure.
I've had that in BNI where like I got into an argument with one of the members and then he's like going behind telling membership committee. And I'm like, dude, come on.
I just,
Put you in
and they're
time.
like,
BNI
I don't want to deal with that.
I tell you the hard,
You went to BNI timeout.
oh snap.
I've been a BNI kicked out.
Well, that's since you brought it up, I'll say jokingly, I'd say, about half of our members are in BNI. And the other half have BNI PTSD.
Have you tried flipping any yet? Is that
no, nope.
That's not your model.
So our two defining things are liberty and integrity, and so I won't do that.
Cool. I like that.
But one of the hardest things that I have to deal with that I've learned is just adults not acting like adults. That is the hardest thing. If people would just have integrity and act like adults, life would be much easier.
Yeah. So everybody come to you with all the drama.
I
this
get
member said this about me.
Well, and that you asked, about the hardest thing, and that's learning not to get involved. And hey, y'all, I'm not your daddy. I'm not your boss. Y'all got to figure it out.
For sure.
And if it's something directly affecting the organization, okay, I can step in and take care of it. But if it's something between two members,
that's on y'all.
Absolutely. Sure. And you got to learn, and we tell every new person this too, that they are responsible for doing their own due diligence and vetting the people that they're giving referrals to and doing business with, no matter what organization they're in.
Yeah.
I've learned that with networking groups. That's the toughest thing. It was like trying to refer the right people, and then also like who are these people when they first come into these groups, if they are actually professionals in their industry or not. And then it's like, and then when somebody leaves a group or has to get kicked out of a group, well, what if we still had a good relationship together and I just like working with them? So you're not entitled to use somebody. And I think that's maybe something that even has to get said when you first join the meeting. Like, hey, again, you are vetting your own people. If you're going to refer Ray Mack and your group, well, you want to make sure that he's doing a good job. You don't want to just refer him and then find out later and then come to me with your problem, or come to you with the problem.
And that's one of my advisors basically said, we are not obligated to do business with any specific person.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a hard lesson for me because I'm a very loyal person,
For sure.
So, but I learned that the hard way too.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough because especially now that you're growing so much, you're going to be referring 15 different moving companies and 15 different painters.
I can't really tag people in Facebook groups anymore as much,
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, you get that problem, I'm sure too.
Yeah.
Like, who do you tag? I get messaged all the time. Be like, man, I saw you tagged him. I'm like, dude, what?
Just grow up, right?
Life goes on.
Yeah.
So tell me about, you own another business, Upstate Merchant Services, right?
Upstate Merchant Advocates.
Upstate Merchant Advocates, my bad. So is that kind of what led you into like networking, where you go into other networking events, you don't have to call them by name, and it just wasn't for you, and you just saw a couple of things you could tweet?
Yeah, I was in the corporate world for about 10 years with a Kellogg, and I got laid off and didn't want to go through that again, right?
With Kellogg?
So, Kellogg,
Did you get an unlimited Frosted Flakes?
I did not. I actually did not do cereals. I was in a cookie and cracker division.
That sounds cool.
So I've been in every grocery store from like Anderson, South Carolina to almost Asheville, North Carolina at some point.
Yeah.
Over a decade, I was in those stores and I managed them, whatever. But they laid everybody off almost in 2019. I didn't want to go through that again. So I took a sales job. But it was a desk job and it was awful. And I just, there was no culture. I just wasn't my thing. So So I was just looking for other industries, and I came across merchant services. And so basically I went from a good salary to commission to nothing when I put in my notification and left. And so I had to start building my book of business. And that's when I just started discovering, okay, what networking group was and all that. And I just learned, and I went to so many. I co-hosted an online network group, was in about 4 or 5 locally. And so I kind of picked up things that I liked and worked good from different ones. And that's kind of where I took a little bit from what I liked from different things and then added my own twist of stuff and kind of developed Liberty Networking. But yes, that's how I Upstate Merchant Advocates, growing my book of business. That's how I got into networking and everything. And so I started that in March of 2020 when everything shut down. So it was perfect time to start something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then, about a year and a half later, February of 2021 is when I started Liberty Networking.
Nice.
So yeah, still manage both of them.
Is there anything in Liberty Networking that you wish you could do without? Like, is there like any situations you run into that you're like, man, I wish I could just not deal with this up?
People not acting like adults.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've had yeah, I mean, getting my process down to get the right presidents in place,
Yeah.
because I've had some that have been a real challenge.
Yeah.
So that would be one.
How do you vet them?
So right now, like, I have not wanted to put a chapter in a specific location. I've always went where the leadership is. So when I get somebody, so basically I have a conversation with them, make sure that they agree with our values. We go through that process. And then once they go through the application of process, meaning they agree with everything, they sign a code of conduct, all that kind of stuff. And I give them the chapter president expectations, make sure they agree with that. And so that's kind of the process right now.
Have you ever had to turn anybody down?
No, not specifically for president yet.
Yeah.
I have had, like, I know as a financial advisor, different. Yeah, there's been some industries. There's a membership committee too, and for one committee for the whole organization. And they help me kind of vet those type of things.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I mean, that's pretty smart though, just to grow from your leadership down. You're not trying to just get groups all over the place and then just fill it as you go. You're trying to find a person that can run it, manage it, and then get the people to come. That's pretty smart, because I've seen a couple other groups that are just throwing groups all over the place, and eventually that's just disaster written all over it because you can't keep up with that. So.
Right. I'm fine with growing slow, but I want steady. I want solid, groups of right people in the right seats, as we mentioned. So I'm not looking to put 100 chapters. I mean, eventually I will, but back to the whole grassroots growing, steady and doing it correctly from the ground up.
Is this something that you see yourself getting away from Upstate Merchants?
Maybe one day. It does bring in residual income, and so they're two vertical businesses. They feed each other. I talked to somebody about merchant services. It's a small business owner. I'm like, hey, I got Liberty Networking if you'd like to grow your business, and vice versa. And I get referrals from it. So another thing is with the merchant services, I work with a lot of restaurants, and so they are always needing different things. And so from Liberty Networking, I can tell them anything you need, I got a contact for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I've had people, printing brochures and menus to ink pens, creating menus. I mean, HVAC.
You can talk to people about where to hold the next meeting if they're open to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of value in having both of them.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah,
that's
that makes
awesome.
sense.
So tell us about why is networking so important to you, and why do you find networking such a vital piece of growing your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people I find don't really see the value in it because they're like, oh, I got to take time out of doing a sale to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
But the whole goal with Liberty Networking is long-term relationships. If you build those relationships, the business will come. So the value is you're never going to do business with everybody in your specific chapter. But the value is that each one of those knows about 300 people. And when you build that relationship, when somebody needs, remodeling or your moving company, you're going to be at top of the mind, the first one. And the idea is that they give you that referral.
Yeah.
So it's a marketing arm for your business. And as part of my structure, I believe that networking should not be a part-time job, but it should be, a tool for your business.
Yeah.
And so if you utilize it that way but you also get in what you put out. You get out what you put in.
Yeah.
So you have to give referrals.
Yeah.
You got to build relationships. You got to meet with what we call RBMs, or relationship building meetings. You got to get to know those people, and whenever they know, like, and trust you, then they're going to give you those referrals. But that's the power of it. Is they know those 300 people, and whenever they know somebody needs your services, you're going to be getting that business as opposed to your competition.
Nice.
You also provide value when you give a referral to someone. If you got a client and they need something in your network group, you give them that referral. You're providing them value because you're helping them solve a problem.
Cool. So we're going to ask you a couple quick questions. We're going to call it the hot seat challenge. First question, worst networking meeting you've ever been to?
Oh my goodness. Well, there was one, and I only went to this meeting one time. I never went back. There was about 4 or 5 people late. One of the guys was on his laptop the whole time. It was just very not welcoming, and I didn't feel like anybody was paying attention. And here it is a year and a half later, one of those guys I met in that meeting has joined Liberty Networking. So you just never know where the next connection relationship is going to come from.
Absolutely. So how about, what was the worst referral you ever gave?
I ever gave.
Yes. Have you ever gave a referral and then somebody said that person was not too good?
Oh yeah. Yes, but I don't remember one right off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, that happens if you didn't vet the person, and that's part of a learning curve.
Yeah.
How many people have you had to kick out of the meetings of the group so far?
Officially 2 so far.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Your biggest fear?
Growing too fast and not having the structure in place.
That's part. Yeah. What's the hardest thing that you see that's gonna get in the way of you growing in the next year?
Right people in the right positions.
Those finding that management.
I mean, there's just those fundamentals with growing the business that you got to have. I mean, you can lay the structure out on paper, but if that person is not there and want to be there and doing their job, then you're just going to cause bigger issues down the road.
Cool. All right, I got one more. Maybe this will be a shout out to John. What's the best group that you have at this point so far?
Yeah, so our 3 biggest groups, we have Greer with 17 members currently.
Let's go Greer.
Yeah. There's a Greenville chapter with 18, and then another Greenville chapter with 21, which is led by John Vanderhook. He's a professional financial advisor with Premeire, and he does a phenomenal job, and he invites guests. And so his members see that and they're like, oh, well, maybe we should invite guests. And that's why they've grown the fastest to the biggest chapter.
Yeah.
And people's like, well, John knows everybody. Okay. Yeah.
He just moved here a year ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's gotten that way from networking.
Not even a year ago. He literally contacted me because of a Facebook Live video I did. He contacted me the day after he moved here.
Yeah. Connected
with me. And then within a few months, he, went through the process, had his chapter up and running, and now less than a year later, he's got the largest chapter. So I like that he removes excuses.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, if people are looking for you on either business, where can they find you at?
Yeah, so Jimmy Sorrells on Facebook and LinkedIn. LibertyNetworking.org is our website, and then upstatemerchantadvocates.com. And feel free to reach out with any questions.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure having you on, man. Yeah. Always good to see you.
You too.
It's a privilege knowing you, man. You're one of the famous people of Greenville when I first moved here.
The Ninja Networker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ninja Networker. Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate the opportunity.
Let's go, baby. Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Perfect.